beautiful people.
Hello.
Oh my gosh. Hello.
Hi.
Welcome to the Powerful Stuff podcast. We started Powerful Stuff, Eileen and myself, because powerful stuff is one of our favorite expressions to say, making the mundane extraordinary.
Absolutely. It's kind of a funny way to acknowledge that what you're saying is important and powerful, but also make light of it.
And how you really want to say it is, powerful stuff.
Powerful stuff.
Like you really want to be slow with it, take your time, get that sigh in before. And that's, I think, very metaphorically representative of our podcast, because we want it to be something that is powerful for you, like a takeaway, like you're talking to your pragmatically spiritual California bestie.
Who's so well-rounded with so many interests and lenses.
Right, exactly. And who also you relate to, because we're talking about this stuff as we're living it or having just processed it. We're basically we call each other our lock boxes, therapists here in LA, where we are each other's person, what we can vent to. The other has literally been able to see us at our worst and still give us that highest self advice. And so we wanted to be able to share that with you in a powerful, hopefully comical and entertaining way.
Yes.
And so this podcast, in each episode, will kind of always have it like an arc. Like an experience. We're all about opening and closing ceremonies. The ironic thing is neither of us are from LA, but if you stay here long enough, you know what we mean.
And if LA calls you, there's probably a reason. You've been brewing something.
But
I think the arc is so cool because this is something that Meredith does for not only the professional events that she hosts, but a lot of the fun events we have too, like even bachelorette parties. Mm-hmm. And it always just creates such a nice container. Another good LA word.
Right. A container is a type of experience that you have that has an opening and closing ceremony in LA where you can drop in, which is another word for chatting with someone in a deep way. All these terms that we'll go into. But yeah, so the arc of this podcast will be kind of opening up, setting an intention, usually taking a collective breath together, doing a little bit of a meditation. If you're driving or walking or whatever, keep your eyes open, but just let those words land. And then we'll talk about the overall theme, like friendship, boundaries, communication, pivoting jobs, all of these pressing millennial questions that we have.
And then even the fun, abstract things that we just think about and relate to and like to dive deep in and research.
Totally. Like the Taylor Swift Eras tour. Or just
naturally.
That's been one that I've taken a deep dive into.
Gardening.
Yeah. For example.
Go everywhere.
Yeah. And we'll relate it back to our personal experience after we've talked about the broader theme and our musing around it, and then leave you with some ponderings, with some journaling prompts, with some action items. And our hope is that we're all kind of in this dialogue together, and that our learnings and musings that we have learned along the way are continuing to learn. And sometimes they're like, universe, why do you keep sending me this lesson? That we're all in that journey together.
Exactly. And hopefully we can reframe some things so that you can still experience it. You don't have to run away from things, but know that you're getting the most out of it and know that we're all experiencing it too.
Totally. And we'll talk about, like, for context, both of us live in Venice, but both of us come from strong, stoic New York moms. And I grew up in Texas. She grew up in New York. And so it's funny because we both slowly, through osmosis, developed the California ways, which we know and love, but also take with a grain of salt.
Yes. Just know that on the inside, there is a hard, tough New York Jew there waiting.
To be like, is this real?
Yes, exactly.
Why are you believing this? But then you're like, you know what? If it's fun and it makes my life better, I'm going to believe it anyways.
Exactly. A healthy dose of skepticism with full faith.
With full faith, right. And so all of that's to say, no matter what religion you are, this is all about just showing up, having conversation, and being curious and playful. And like Eileen said, we all go through hard things, triggering things, outgrowing friendships, communication that we've been dreading with someone, things that come up in our relationships, and these things that feel so taboo or hard to talk about, we're going to talk about and hopefully shed some light on these topics. And then Eileen, did you want to dive in about what you were seeing in the podcast space, or what you were craving rather?
Yes, I do. Because I love listening to podcasts. It's so fun if you are taking a walk or doing laundry or just doing any of the things that you don't really love doing, and that you could be entertaining yourself a little bit or learning during. And I just felt like everything was so specific. There are comedy podcasts, there are dating podcasts, there are sex podcasts, there are hardcore science podcasts, and history, and you can dive into all these different subjects. And obviously there are experts that are very qualified to talk about each of these things, but we want to kind of bring it all together and bring all the things that we're interested in to you, because something that Meredith and I have in common is that we have a broad range of interests and a broad range of
multi-passionate people.
Multi-passionate people, which is a great name for it. And there have been times in our lives when this has been a point of insecurity or perceived weakness or judgment from others.
Right, like you can't focus, just focus on one thing.
Mm-hmm. You're always distracted. And I will admit, there have been times when I've been distracted.
When we were in fact distracted.
ADHD is also present here.
Right.
But how great to be able to turn those things into, as Meredith likes to say, our superpower.
Right. Rather than weaponizing it against ourselves, like I can't focus on one thing or da-da-da.
Exactly.
Or I can't feel fully expressed in my creative side because people will think that I'm distracted.
Right. I can't be interested in that because it doesn't align with this other part of my personality that I'm supposed to be emphasizing right now.
Right. So this will really just be a variety show, a deep dive into the topics we care about. And some episodes, like I said before, will be long form. Some will be short solo musings or meditations. And all of them will really just be a playful look at the human experience.
Yes.
And so we'd love to use this time now to introduce each other. Another thing that we do at my experience company, more of that, which is helping people do more of what they love, is we'll have you find someone that you don't know, that you haven't met, and learn something about them. And then you'll introduce them to the group. So we'll do that now with each other. Do you want to go first?
Sure.
Okay.
Gosh, I'm going to miss so many things, but that's part of it. Meredith, as she said, is from Texas. She moved to Venice a number of years ago. Some might call her the Queen of Venice.
Some.
Or
mayor. No, I'm joking.
This is our political action campaign launch.
Right.
Just kidding. And she is a multi-passionate person through and through, and always has been, from a young career in journalism to yoga that took her around the world, to a music career that took her around the world, to landing in the heart of the kind of new age thought and spirituality here, and taking on breath work and going deeper into yoga and meditations and becoming a coach and helping women especially, but men as well, find their voice and embrace the truest part of themselves. And that means taking all the vulnerable pieces and all of the amazing shining pieces that sometimes we're afraid to show too, and figuring out how that really aligns to who we want to be and what our purpose is. And so Meredith does that for people, and she also embodies that, more importantly.
I received that.
And that's my quick 1 minute.
Oh my gosh.
And then we can go back and forth.
Oh my God, I love that. I feel so seen. Yeah, thank you. I strive to embody it. As Eileen mentioned, I am a coach, but I also am a songwriter, and I also am a writer. And it was a winding journey to get here, but I like to say my golden thread was that I always love helping people own and share their authentic story. So I did that since I was in high school as a journalist. Then in college, I went to Harvard and was trying to find my voice there, because they say you go from being a big fish in a small pond to a small fish in a big pond. And so while I was there, I ended up traveling to different countries in Latin America and Africa and doing human interest stories and helping, the own and share your story from a journalism perspective. And then after that, I went to grad school to pursue that further, and then took a total 180 and started a beverage company because I thought it would be a brand building thing of conscious beverage connection.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And and then through all of that in the personal development world, realized that wasn't my true calling. And I wanted to help people own and share their story from the inside out with coaching, with my experience company, and now with our podcast. And it's all been a winding journey to get there, and also a journey of letting go of the shoulds, of coming from like a background where it does feel like you are surrounded by a lot of like high achievers, which can be really amazing in giving you drive and ambition, but also really good to check in and make sure, like, is this actually what I want, or am I doing it because I feel like I should be doing it?
That is so key.
Yes. So all of that's to say that's me. You guys will find out more along the way.
You sure will.
I love John Mayer and
Taylor Swift.
Even though who knows where they stand with each other.
Maybe we'll break that down one day.
Yeah. Have a tropical art. Our theme song is a tropical reggaeton Spanish.
Yes, as you might have heard,
house
that was,
song
in fact,
that I wrote
our very own
back in the day. And yeah, we'll just introduce the ray of light in my life, Eileen, who I had the pleasure of living with in 2021 to 2022.
Yes.
Eileen hails from New York and went to Stuyvesant High School with our dear friend Sam. And Eileen was in the banking and finance world, and then took a leap of faith.
Or more just tech.
Tech world. But that world, no,
as you can hear, a very foreign, mysterious world. It doesn't belong here.
Yeah. And she left that world and she came to Los Angeles, California, and worked on Ground Plans, which is a company she worked on with her mom that sources ethical rugs from around the world, and did a lot there. Eileen, this last year, even though she was moving in with me and I had been living in Venice for 4 or 5 years, she introduced me to the most eclectic artists and really cool people. And like one time we went to like a crypto art gallery viewing together.
Yes, the first crypto art gallery in the world started here in Venice.
Yeah.
And they had some super fun summer events.
Yeah, it was great. And then another time you're like, we need to go to the boardwalk to take care of these 2-week-old kittens. So I always love how she just like lives between so many different people and places, and like stops to really smell the roses. Literally, she did that on a walk that we were on. And now she's transitioning out of Ground Plans into the next chapter, and just got back from a month in India, and is starting her amazing journey on astrology reading. She was giving me some powerful stuff on mine just before this pod episode. So, I mean, that is, again, like you said, just the surface of what I could say about Eileen. I guess I should also mention she is just a little nature fairy. Always see her in your nearest talus field, which is a field of rocks covered in moss.
Yes, I will be there. Yeah. Also, similar journey around releasing shoulds and coming from such a high pressure environment, and starting out with a ballet career when I was younger, and moving into this STEM space and trying to feel like we had to be girl bosses, and R.I.P. girl boss. But and now it's just about realizing that that's the constant evolution of life, is releasing those shoulds and those identities that we attach ourselves to, and realizing that the only identity we can really have is our own and our own values, and it's just within us, and it's not attached to the job we have or the work we do or anything external, really, which sounds woo-woo, but it's real when you realize that you can navigate through all of these different communities and worlds and still be the same. And that's kind of that golden thread is you then in those instances.
Totally. Yeah. when we stop, as they say, shitting all over ourselves.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and like it's about the energy that you bring into a room. It's about like the type of
Yes.
things and people and moments that you have, and that's something I love about you is that you're always really good at like slowing down.
I love to slow down.
And appreciating. So with that, should we kick off the first episode theme?
Yes.
Okay, you guys, buckle up.
Yeah. It just gets me so excited.
It's so hype. Our first theme is in spirit of the summer being upon us, even though it doesn't look that way in Venice, is the idea of fully blooming, of all the seeds that we thought we wanted to plant with our New Year's resolutions, goals that we might have had for a long time. Oftentimes, it's a seed that you need to plant and allow it to grow and to water it every day. And that we forget sometimes that after we plant the seed, really challenging things might happen. Shit might hit the fan and you might be like, wait, this is so far away from what I wanted to call in. But what we see when we zoom out is that it was actually creating fertile soil for the seed to grow.
I love that. And before we launch into that, should we give ourselves a little meditation to ponder that thought?
Yes. So,
And by give ourselves, I mean, can you give us one?
perfect. Say no more. Okay. So we'll start with our little meditation or our deep focused musing for those of you moving, operating vehicles. If you want to close your eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose and then open mouth exhale. Second breath in, breathing into the top of your head. And exhale, sighing it out. And then third and deepest breath in. And exhale. As you turn your gaze inward, thinking of that little seed that you had, maybe it was at the beginning of this year, a few years ago, that you have been holding in your hand ready to plant. What makes you excited about the seed? How does it feel like a representation of your core authentic energy, the authentic gifts you're ready to put into the world? And as you hold it, kneeling down in your mind's eye, as if you're kneeling down to the earth and carving out a little piece of the earth to put the seed inside. And as you put the soil on top of it, noticing the soil like it's past memories, challenging things that you went through, things that you never thought you would have to go through, things that you went through and you really stretched yourself and showed yourself your strength. Noticing all of those things turn to soil, making total sense now how they had to happen exactly as they did to give you the strength, the perspective, the clarity you needed to be in this perfect place to plant that seed. And as you view each of these challenging or difficult things, viewing them with gratitude, and with each breath, almost releasing each into the earth, thanking it for how it let you grow. And as you release it into the earth, feeling it nurture the seed and feeling the seed start to sprout its roots, rooting down into the core of the earth, into the core of your being. And then feeling the seed as you start to water it now and nurture it and trust in the slow, trust in the timing. Feel it starting to poke its head through the earth. How at first it might feel new and scary and vulnerable, but with constant love and compassion and allowance and patience, seeing the seed sprout into a full flower. And as you see it sprout into a full flower, feeling into what it would feel like to be fully embodied in all areas of your life, in full bloom. How would that feel personally, and how you move throughout your day, how would that feel professionally and using your zone of genius and feeling valued for the work that you're putting out? How would that feel in your relationships, feeling fully seen and loved and having inspired and joyful connections with others? And how would that feel in just using your voice fully, feeling like the fullest, highest self version of you? Breathing into that, placing your hands on your heart. Imagine that your hands on your heart supercharges this feeling around your body, through your heels into the earth, out your head, sprouting toward the sky. Taking a breath in to breathe this in, and open mouth exhale. And then second breath to arrive back in this room. And open mouth exhale, slowly opening your eyes. So I hope that you guys got some good musings from that. We'll dive into a little bit of that process first, and then we'll both kind of share what that full bloom experience has looked like on a personal level for each of us. Then we'll leave you guys with some takeaways for this first episode. Okay, I promise I won't do that a lot, but that button is so tempting.
So fun.
On the little mix board. It's like, should we add some more hype here?
Am I a DJ?
So, yeah, kind of just what I said in the meditation, in that it's really about, and this is the magic of self-development, is all the things that are hard or triggering, how are they coming up to invite us deeper into ourselves so we can heal something, so we can release something, so we can shed something. And that process is often painful. It's often like, can feel like a death of something, of a relationship, of a part of us. But it's kind of necessary to create that space for the new thing.
Yes. And I love that visualization of more soil being added and sort of being able to differentiate between what's coming in and being added as extra soil and extra nourishment, and what's actually that bloom starting to sprout, and being able to see the difference. And I think that's kind of what we're getting at, because sometimes you might think that you're there and you're blooming and you're sprouting and you want to be at a certain place, and then you realize that that's just another step along the way, or that's just another piece to challenge you or give you strength, so that you can be ready when you actually do sprout.
Right. And it's all like an upward spiral. Like we might be continuing to get the same triggers or lessons, but each time we're getting them, it means either we haven't learned, or we're pulling back a new layer.
Yeah, totally.
Or there's still more to learn, and there's another lesson to learn here. Because sometimes in self-development, you can be like, oh, I thought I healed that, or I pulled it back, and now I understand it. And I think that actually is the biggest buzzkill to self-development, is to be like, oh, I got it. I healed it. I did that ceremony and now that's done, versus staying curious.
Totally. I love journaling. I journal a lot and have for decades, as you have too. And I remember talking to a friend about how frustrated I was getting because I was reading back some old journals and I was looking at the things I'd been talking about 2, 3, 5 years prior, and realizing that I was still working through a lot of the same things. And I just got so frustrated, and I turned it into this whole thing about humans having poor memory and being bad at figuring out how to navigate life and incorporate things and stick to things. And I just felt like our minds are so weak. And I turned it into this whole kind of existential crisis. And I was talking to a friend who also is a big fan of journaling and self-development. And he said something so profound that I think about all the time.
Oh my gosh, cliffhanger. Is it powerful stuff worthy?
It's powerful stuff worthy. And he said, some things are just so big and so powerful that it takes years, or it takes multiple instances of seeing that lesson from different angles to really internalize it. And that is just how those lessons are given to us. And I just realized in that moment that that is part of it. You know, we don't have a checklist of learnings.
Right. And it can be so funny because it's so easy to see like your own potential of where you could go and then be frustrated with yourself for not getting it quickly. Or if it's like you're looking at a partner or a friend, you're like, oh my gosh, why do they keep self-sabotaging? I've told them a million times. Based on true stories. And it just takes people time. Yes. And like if we've had decades of doing something one way, we might see the other path in a ceremony or a therapy session or whatever, but it might take months or years to pivot to that.
Right.
Because there's a lag time, and self-development's not just about having the answer, but being compassionate with yourself when you make a human error, when you make a mistake, and owning it.
Yeah.
And being like, I made a mistake, or I did that again. Oops, I did it again.
Oops, I did
but I'm trying. I'm not going to stay in that as my excuse forever. But like, I'm having compassion and grace with myself. And I know that I'm trying every day to get better.
Right. And I like what you said. It's not about having the answer. Actually, the answer is kind of the easy part. Not the easy part, but the visioning is more accessible in the present. Mm-hmm. But the creating and the making of it takes
time.
A lot of time and work.
Yeah. And should we go into our personal lived full blooms of the Mo? Meant?
Would you like to start?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it is so funny because things just take time. And I've been on my self-development journey for like almost a decade, and I want to be on it until the day I die. But it's sometimes I'm just like, I wish I could just not have these triggers, even as a coach, where I tell all my clients, like, triggers are treasures. They're showing you where you can heal parts of yourself. And then we work through it with them. They're like, I get it. And then when I have one coming up, I'm like, but of course, what we resist persists. So what I usually do is I do some breath work, and then I call Eileen. And Eileen is my trigger surgeon. She like pulls it out of me. Sews me up, sprays me with some lavender mist. But for me, I think my full bloom this last year, a few huge lessons that have led to my full bloom is like this year, I've always known I wanted to expand my platform as a coach, to have some recorded meditations, breathworks, courses, do our podcast. Because my goal/dream when I was younger was to always have my own talk show. And I've done various podcasts throughout the years, and I have one with my co-founder, Eric, of more of that, which is also great, definitely more interview based of like other community builders, but one where I could really express my inner world and also just like carve out more time for songwriting and all of that. So anyways, I kind of last summer was starting to feel like there was an up level brewing. The first thing I really had to do was cut out all the things that weren't sparking joy anymore, kind of like Marie Kondo style. So I had to put in some hard boundaries with friendships that were no longer, or that felt one-sided, that didn't feel like they were giving me energy, that felt like it was demanding a lot, and I was feeling depleted from them. And that's a really hard thing to do, because we all empathize with other people, and it's so easy to want to give to other people, especially when you feel like you're seeing direct benefit from doing so. And the deep lesson I learned from that, kind of like the cheesy oxygen mask.
Mm-hmm. It's very real.
Thing is, you have to put it on yourself before you can put it on others. So in setting those hard boundaries, which we'll do a whole pod episode on boundaries, a whole one on friendships, a whole one on friendship boundaries.
Oh yeah.
But setting that boundary with like that initial person kind of really waterfalled into like noticing where else in my life things were adding to my energy or taking away from my energy. So I became really discerning about that to kind of clear out space. And then I was forced to slow down a lot in the winter, even though I'm with my partner, Spencer, who's now my husband. We had an abortion in December, and that was really hard. I wasn't expecting the hormonal effects of that, and really turned inward for a few months of just feeling like I wanted to kind of process, either be alone or with a small group of friends. And it was hard for me to be around people for extended periods of time, because as a coach and as someone who's very extroverted, it's hard to be around people when I'm feeling like negative or assuming the worst, because I usually pride myself on finding the reframe. And in that moment, I just needed stillness.
Yeah.
And so I did a solo sabbatical. I cleared out my schedule for a month where it was like no outcome. And I went to Big Sur by myself, and I did the New Camoldi Hermitage, which you recommended, where you live with monks in silence for a few days in Big Sur.
It's a magical, magical place.
Yeah.
2 miles up a mountain, dinosaur land.
It's crazy. So grateful for that. And then I went to Esalen, which is like this retreat center, which is like one of the places where people sit and talk about human development. You can do courses there. They have 24-hour clothing optional, mineral hot springs. So very
1970s counterculture California.
Yeah. Alan Watts vibes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And use that time to just be in stillness with myself. And the thing that kept coming up was, or the download, as we say in LA, which is another word for musing, that kept coming up, is all questions are answered in the present moment. When I'm able to slow down and just be, I can actually assess what the next step is, versus, you know how they say sometimes people eat with their eyes, or, or like when you eat so fast that you don't realize you're full.
Yeah.
It's almost like slowing down and savoring every bite, so you can tell when you're full, or you can tell what you actually want next, because you're allowing yourself time to chew and digest each experience.
Yes.
So that's what I feel like. All of that was like my soil. Like the abortion experience set me off on that time to really slow down and just be. And it was so painful at the time, but that's kind of like the soil.
Yeah.
And then it allowed me to clear out that, and like all the boundary setting I've done allowed me to clear out the space. And now I feel like the seed that I'm planting is my full expression through our podcast, through making my larger coaching platform, and through my other fun creative project, which is I went to Taylor Swift's Eras tour in Houston, Texas. And I have been writing songs since I was 18. And so, yeah, I'm starting my own TikTok, 30 Days to Stadium, as if each day I'm playing a song and telling the story behind the song. As if it's like 30 days to play 70,000 people. Maybe we'll get there on TikTok. Who knows? But yeah, I feel like my seed is just like taking action, doing less of sitting around wondering. I realized I was getting triggered a lot by people, not because of the people, but because they were just taking messy action and I wasn't. And so that was kind of the wake up call to exit my hibernation and to start taking the action on the things that were important to me.
That is powerful. I want to just make a couple points before I launch into mine, which
oh my gosh, of course
will mirror. But I love what you said about sort of having this forced time when you had to be still and quiet. And it just is interesting how that happens sometimes, especially with people who naturally just kind of live more externally like you do and want to give a lot to people. And that's not always so positive. You know, I say that obviously it's a beautiful thing, but sometimes we also do that to avoid our own what's going on inside. And sometimes these devastating things will happen, and it's not about, being toxically positive and looking for the good in it. Obviously, we acknowledge how devastating and hard that is, but it's interesting how these things happen and then force you to look at yourself, to get quiet, to sort of put up a little boundary against other people that you might have wanted to already, but you didn't have the excuse in your own mind to do it yourself.
Totally. And it became such a visceral thing that's like brought to the forefront, whereas before it might feel just like a little
right. You can push it
itch.
Away and just ignore it until you can't. Mm-hmm. Yes. I love that. So
let's hear yours.
So many different angles to take as always, but last year we had lived together 2 years ago. Last year, I moved out into my own place here in Venice.
Which we had a closing ceremonies for.
Absolutely. That was necessary.
And then an opening one here.
Yes. And we should definitely talk more about our roommate tactic and ceremony, because I just think we kind of nailed it.
We're kind of obsessed with our tactics as roommates. Yeah.
Our open communication.
Watch this pod. Yeah. Episode brewing.
But that was the first time living not alone. I'd lived alone for almost 8 years prior to that in New York, but living alone in a city that I really chose and a city that I really felt so sure about. I had been wanting to move to LA for so many years before I did, and now I was finally in this place where I was independent here in some ways and just trying to navigate. And it felt like that first year with you was such a cocoon. And then I had to kind of just launch, and I knew that I had to figure it out on my own. And there were a lot of questions coming up around career and family and living situation. And there was even a point last year, I had been bi-coastal to New York for most of my first 2 years here, going there once a month or spending 3 or 4 weeks at a time there. And there was a point last year when I was even questioning if I would move back or if I would continue or if I would move to another city or move abroad. My family's in France. And so I just had a million questions coming up. And in terms of career, I've been working with my mom on our business ground plans.
Which is so impressive to work with your mom for any period of time.
Yes. So we have been working together for 5 years, and it's an amazing business. It really is. We develop beautiful, custom, handmade, sustainable rugs.
Some insane ones, like that story about Romania.
Yes, they come from amazing places. We source from 10 different countries and from some really interesting weavers. And I feel so connected to that industry, and it's one I grew up in. But of course, as we mentioned before, I took a few different paths into the engineering world and into tech and into government and education and law enforcement, and it's just been a winding road. And I was getting to a point at some point last year when I was feeling like there were other parts of myself that needed to be exercised or fulfilled. Moving to LA was a bloom in itself of noticing even that I had this other half of myself that had been sort of lying dormant in New York for my whole life for 29 years.
Like awakening the giant, but like the magical forest fairy.
Exactly. And then last year it was like, well, what am I going to do with this giant? And how is it going to feed itself and express itself? And I took a lot of introspection, more than I've taken before. I think we're both kind of introvert, extrovert. But I'd never really allowed myself to pull back socially as much as I did last year, and really decline most social invites and keep my inner circle really, really small and only could talk to a few people and confide in a few people. And it was a similar feeling of just feeling like I had to protect my energy so much because there was so much I was trying to figure out, and I didn't have any capacity to really give it beyond my family or my close friends and still have stuff left for myself. And I just felt totally depleted. And it's been interesting also just talking to other friends and people more recently who had a very similar experience last year, and we can get into the depths of that. But anyways, that all sort of brought me to trying out different things and culminated in this month in India this past March, when I went for one reason and I came out with a completely different set of learnings and lessons and directions. And I came home and I got super sick, and I was forced again to just kind of isolate with family and confront everything that came up there and within myself and figure out what I was going to do next. And I've been back in LA for now almost a full month, and it feels amazing to be back. And I just have this newfound sense of energy, and I want to reach out to people. And I feel so much more connected to the communities that I was introduced to here. And on a similar note with you, I think the power and that energy just comes from doing and trying things. And we're doing this, and there are other projects that I'm excited about and other paths I'm pursuing and other parts of my brain that I'm just so ready to exercise. And I just feel like I just feel
Alive.
a new life. Yeah, I feel alive in a different kind of way. And it feels really good. And I'm just excited to capture this moment and seize it.
I love that. And I love what you said about protecting your energy during that cocooning time because, and I've heard someone use this metaphor before, like when a caterpillar is cocooning to become a butterfly, it's like all mush inside. And if it's like opened up, then like the whole process is ruined.
Right.
And it needs like total protection because it's like literally like a caterpillar soup in there.
Oh my God, that's so how I felt. I felt like if I get opened now, I might just spill out, fall apart, and never come back together.
Yeah. And it is like, right, when the caterpillar thought the world was over, it became a butterfly, but it's like that importance of protecting your energy. And I love something about you that, well, A, honored to have stayed in touch with you during that time. and B, something I really admired is like sometimes in other cities, or I noticed when I was living in London or other places, like if you didn't want to go to something, you felt like you still had the obligation to say yes unless you had a counter plan. Mm-hmm. Whereas here and in you're one of the people who does it best. Like you're literally just like, thank you so much for the invite. I'm having a me night or I need some time for myself and just unapologetically owning that. And then it made the times that you did show up a full yes, you know, because you were fully energized and choosing to be there versus doing it out of obligation, which I always thought in the midst of your journey of something you really valuing yourself and having self-love and inner conviction to be able to do that even during that time where you felt like you were cocooning.
Thank you. See you.
Powerful. Okay, everyone. Well, Eileen, is there anything else you wanted to mention? Yeah.
I'm just so excited to dive into little pieces of these stories. And obviously today is a little bit heavier about us and just trying to lay a foundation for who we are and how we got here. But I'm just really excited to get into the lessons and the back and forth and comparing our experiences. And
I know there's so much to be unveiled.
I just feel like
it's just the beginning.
It's just the beginning. And usually we're walking and running and having these conversations. So while we're sitting, I'm just kind of like,
what's going to come up from the vaults, the friendship vaults. So for all of you listening, for your own seed to tie it back to our arc.
Yes.
My questions for you, and Eileen, feel free to jump in, would be what is that initial seed that you're planting? And what are the challenging things, the unexpected things that have happened this last year that might have felt really hard at the time? And how are those actually soil for the seed's growth? How have they actually helped force you along into this next version of yourself? What can you thank those things for? And then with that seed, final question is, what would it feel like to be in full bloom in these different areas of your life? Maybe writing out each area, like personal, professional, relationships. How would that feel? And where are you now on a scale of like 1 to 10 in getting there? And if you're not at a 10 now, what could you do to get to a 10 of that full bloom?
Yes. And one thing I want to add to that, because I'm a little newer to this visioning, and I remember when we were starting and you were giving me a lot of these exercises and tools, it cracked my whole world open. But at the beginning, I wasn't even able to imagine the full 10. My brain wasn't even opened to the possibility of the best things that could possibly happen because I just didn't think they were real, and I had limited my range of dreaming in some ways. And even if you have these abstract dreams, it's so important to entertain them.
Entertain them and focus on like what I like to call the blue skies.
Yeah.
So what is, if you took out all the, this couldn't happen because of this or this, and just like, well, what if it did happen?
Yeah. Like, what if it did?
Right. And if you can't get clear on the detail of it, focus on the feeling. How would you want to feel? I'd want to feel expressed, confident, sexy. And then you'll be able to distill more detail from tapping into the feeling and how you can give yourself more access to that feeling in the present day.
100%.
But you guys, this is literally just the tip of the iceberg of all of our self-development tips, practical manifestation tips,
Musings.
practical and tactical
Yeah.
musings. So we'll all just take a collective breath to close out the container, taking a deep breath in, exhaling out, releasing your seed into the earth, and another breath in, and exhale, allowing whatever musings are meant to stick from today's episode to you to be ingrained. And then third breath in to take today's musings, to take your energetic reframes or shifts, and to exhale, and go share those with yourself, with the world, with other people you come across this week. Thank you guys. That was some powerful stuff. We love you.
Bye.
For listening to the Powerful Stuff podcasts. We're your hosts, Meredith Baker
and Eileen Leguiu. We hope that you learned some powerful stuff that you can take away and implement into your own life.
And if you do, we would love it if you rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast, Powerful Stuff. And if something deeply resonates with you and you share it on social media, tag us. We would love to hear from you. And we will also see you next week for some more powerful stuff.